Scene Lounge. Welcome, Scene Lounge. Hey, hello. Welcome everyone back to Assembly. Welcome back to the Scene Lounge. This is the compostudio 4K intro competitions. I am still Frankie, and I have two good friends of mine. Well, one very good friend and one very new friend of mine. I have Sir Garbage Truck, hello, and I have Utsi. Hello, guys. Welcome here. We have just watched the 1K and the 4K. Utsi, you had entries in both competitions.
Yes.
For people who are just joining us and have no idea what this is, 1K and 4K size coding in one sentence. Can you explain it for the people watching this?
Yeah, you try to put nice looking things into an impossibly small size executable. Like 1K, what can you do in 1K? That's a few text messages. And 4K, that's a lot more. It seems very small amount of bytes if you're into programming, but you can actually put a lot of stuff in there.
Okay.
So you have restrictions, and you have that's your palette, and that's your paintbrush, and you think that looks good, and not do the things that you can't do. Work within the limitations. Yeah, that's what it's about.
How I try to explain it, and I don't know if it's a good method, but please comment, is that take an empty Word document or open office and just open it and save it, and you'll have a file size 20, 30, 40 times bigger than a 1 kilobyte. And in that 1 kilobyte, there is your code, there is your music, there are your graphics, everything is in there.
Yeah. But once you start studying how it's done, you start understanding like what's a byte, what's a bit, and then when you start talking about compression, then you encounter things like fractional bits. So something takes 1.3 bits. You're like, how can you divide a bit? But I recommend studying it or trying out the different tools, and you'll see it's a lot more than you expect.
Okay. Remind me to come back on the expecting toolkits, because people who want to start size coding, there are some good toolkits out there. I want to mental note with both you guys to come back to it at the end of this section. So I want to jump into the competitions we saw first. I would like your first comments. Truck, would you like to go first?
I have been critical of this compo in previous years because sometimes it seemed like the compo was mainly filler of people using a template, changing a few variables, and then that looked good. But this year, I think also last year I was proven wrong, that much more is being done now. It is actually, like you said, a canvas that actually people are painting upon. And I very much think that the 1K thing now is much more expansive than it was. People are doing much more with it. Much more creativity is going into it now. And we're seeing, we again had comments both for the 1K and the 4K, that 10 years ago, 15 years ago, this is what we were seeing. Well, the 1Ks is what we were seeing in 64Ks, and the 4Ks is what we were seeing in demos. Maybe we've become a little jaded in that we're watching the first productions, and these are astounding. 20 years ago, this is the type of thing that we would have seen in a Pixar demo reel, and we're seeing it here in real time. And in an extremely small space.
I want to jump back into real time.
Yeah.
That's so real time is if you look at something in a 1K, a 4K, or a demo, for those at home playing along, real time is everything is calculated on the fly. You're not watching a movie. This is an executable running, and it's doing all these 50, 60 frames a second on your hardware. So that's how you can get it so small. So that was your general overview of the competition, Truck. Thank you.
I would.
Sure, Truck, go back.
I would say, however, that with pre-calcing, we do see some people actually calculating animations and then playing that animation back. That is a technique that is used. It is not used in every case, but the line blurs a tiny bit.
Yeah. One thing that we did not see here was the pre-calc time.
Yes.
If you go to other demo parties, because there are a lot of them out there, you see they start the executable and you see how long it needs to calculate things in the background before it actually starts. I would have liked to see that here as well, so you have an idea exactly how much pre-calc there is. Personal opinion, but I think it's a valid question.
Oh yes, you can also get an idea of how if you see a lot of things and you wonder how, and it came in a short versus you wonder how and it came in a long time. That might, did that pre-calculating create all these things? Is it being played back as a movie? And then the next one, if it doesn't have that, how on earth was that?
It's better because it's not pre-calculating.
It may seem better.
You want to really say something?
Yeah,
your hand
I
moved.
want to say because like if you can squeeze your pre-calc code into 4K, then that's great. Like the pre-calc code, it takes space.
Yes.
So if you can squeeze that in, I think that's just great. In 1K, how much pre-calc can you do really? Because there's so few bytes to use. So I don't think anybody does any pre-calc in 1K.
No,
It-
okay.
yeah.
And I have seen like the same effect in a 1K and a 4K intro, and the 4K intro was like a lot more fluid. So can we assume for the same like cloud style effect?
Not necessarily. It's of course speculation, but these machines that we have today, the amount of processing power in the GPUs, it's
Humongous.
It's so big that like if your effect runs slowly, then it's bad coding. Or some bytes by leaving out some optimization tricks that speed it up.
Yeah.
So
Because certainly in a 1K you don't have room for optimizing.
yeah,
You don't have room for smoothing.
yeah. Well, I had one break statement in my shader which I thought to leave in because it looked so bad without it. So I spent like 3 bytes for that optimization. But that's the kind of thing you do.
Okay. Okay. Shall we go through the 1K? We had a total of 14 entries in it. We have some time. So what specifically stood out? Is there one like what I noticed myself is that there was a lot of different platforms. You have, of course, your expected Windows executable, but there were a lot of WebGL browser based. We had JavaScript. And we also had the first entry was PowerShell.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's the platforms are interesting because from a science coding point of view, each platform is very different. So for JavaScript, it's kind of harder to do audio or because for Windows you can do you can use the general MIDI synth and so on, which, by the way, not many people. Some people think that they made this awesome piano sound, but it's a general MIDI synthesizer. Yeah, but each platform is so different, and how you get your code running. There's the decompression code, and then there's some mandatory headers you have to have in your executable, and each format has a different size structure to it, and depending on what you're using, you have a check called a payload. Yes. So they are very different, and the trick is to use whatever works well with your platform, and different things look good on different platforms. And for example, the JavaScript canvas, it's a nice thing to do. You can do 2D things with the JavaScript canvas that takes a lot more space if you try it for like with a Windows GDI or something, which I tried once, didn't work very well. It took up a lot of space. But anyway, like it's like comparing a motorcycle and a car and a truck. So each one has its own strengths, and they're very different.
To that end, we haven't seen over the a few years ago we saw a FreeBSD, either a 1K or it was a size limited thing, but we haven't seen that many Linux items, and that is because the header that is needed to execute a program on Linux is much larger than the one on Windows. And only recently have there been tricks that were made more public for making size coding on Linux possible. So now we're starting to see some Linux things, and it's very exciting to see that open up.
I'd like to disagree a little bit on that because, like, if you check out stuff from Mark of Fit,
Yes.
he made the things public quite a long time ago.
Yes, but you still had the header, which was about either 15 or 20 times larger than the Windows one. And on top of that, it was more difficult to reach the MIDI from there. So you had certain things that were more accessible and more easy. And as you know with size coding, if you have a way to make it easier, often you will go there because you have limitations.
I want to get to the framework later on because that's where we're going now, which I'm not against. But so on the 1K itself, because of the layout and is the 10th entry. So emoji is heart, which used all OS font blah blah emojis for the display of the effect.
Yeah.
While the effect was not specifically like, wow, I found the execution to be really well done by using the tools that you have in the operating system.
Yeah, and that's an example of using using your platform for doing something that works well in that platform. And the music in that one, in the emoji thing, that was really nice. So maybe it was more sound heavy, how they split the bytes or something. And it's also how you split your effort, like how many hours you spend on something. That's also a resource that's not very often mentioned. Or your skills, if you're not very good at making visuals, and maybe stick to whatever you can do well.
I think also with that particular production, that is sort of the new version of your old console demo, like what came out of the text mode demo competition in the past. Now we're able to use text mode demos type style, except we're using emoji in a browser. I think that's an opening canvas.
Yeah. Also, Uchi, what you said about being music, there was the 11th entry, Fluid Dynamics, which was WebGL, but the audio was a text-to-speech of the source code, I think.
Yeah, it was. I think it works once, but if you have that in every production, it
No.
can't tell French.
It's a one-trick pony, of course, but I found it a good pony.
Yeah, it was. You can use it once, so make it count. So.
I think also there are a few things you could do with that. I did really like the fact that when it was reading back if, it would stop.
Yes.
And that is, of course, not how you read an if in English. I found that fascinating. But also, there might be ways of tweaking that in future. You would have to spend some time with it. It's not necessarily a one-trick pony, but it needs its specific application. In this case, it helped to say, okay, yes, this is Dynamics 101, Fluid Dynamics 101. Here's how you do it. And then there's how you do it. There was another production that also used the title of the production led to more understanding of the actual thing that you saw on screen. And that was the one about
after a Mexican food is trying to find the exit.
Because the title of those two was part of the production much more than others. I find that interesting. I think that itself could be used,
Okay.
and maybe it's not less of a one-trick pony in future. It's
Did,
not a
did
good
any
technique
other
to rely on.
did any other 1K stand out for you, Utsi?
Well, I had marked that number 6 was nice. It had the noise that sounded like ocean waves, and it used the web browser canvas really nicely. It was everything was made up from of ellipses, circles, basically. So I like that one. So take this one thing and use it very well. So you don't need shaders, and then the emoji thing that had very nice music, and the fluid dynamics looked great, but I don't know if I'd want to listen to the speech synthesizer anymore. Uh, and number 13 had sensible general MIDI music. It was kind of an example of the traditional 1K that we used to have a lot. So there's Ray March visuals,
Yes,
and
I wrote down myself Ray marching with a Hammond organ.
well, yeah, but if you try to compose a song for a 1K, like
You don't have a lot.
yeah, you have to use a few tricks.
Truck, your 1Ks.
Well, other than all of them, let's see. I did like the fact that we had the PowerShell demo thing at first. Opening up, it's a firstie, and it's always nice to see firsties. I don't know what more can be done with PowerShell, but to that end, we also saw a number of size-limited things that were in the one scene compo. There were some 256-byte processing things. Don't know that that would be allowed in the 1K compo.
It's a maximum size, so I assume yes, but that's me assuming.
Well, the question is, do you count the processing engine as?
Operating system, I don't think any.
Oh
any
no,
operating
no, no.
system
If you
comes
need
out
like a framework around it, then I guess not.
Yeah, it's up to the organizer and the competition itself.
Okay.
Yeah, well, the PowerShell entry, I think it had really nice sound. I don't know how it was made, but if you can do that kind of sound with PowerShell in 1K, then I'd like to see more.
Oh, I would too. I thought that actually was the actual thing. Was the hey, we were able to make sound with this, and then it created the ellipse.
Yeah.
May I borrow your notes for a second, because I want to make sure that what I'm talking about is not actually in the was not in the 4K.
This is 1K, number 14.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we definitely need to talk about that one, but I think, yeah, the one I was going to mention is actually one of the 4Ks.
Okay. So let's just jump to the 4Ks then.
No, we need to talk about, we've
You have much more 1K. I'll give you 30 seconds for 1K.
There was an individual who was very excited about the fact that Seven was walking around, and that meant we had a really good 1K competition. I think that we did have a really good one, but what Seven did with those clouds I have not seen before.
True.
And I'll come back to this when we talk about the 4Ks.
Okay. Because you and me are
we will all talk about
we are friends of Seven, so it's like
exactly.
Okay, so 4Ks, same question. We had 6 entries.
Yeah, only 6 entries.
Only 6. Well, we had 6 entries, which is an entry, which is good. Like so, 6 entries is good. More is better. Same thing. So overall feedback on the 4Ks.
Yeah, well, I think they were basically all similar technically. Same platforms, except Nobi and Fizzr used compute shaders. I think that was an exception. And Fimea, however their name should be pronounced, used Linux and their own
That was the 4th entry, yes.
Yeah, framework. But I think it was technically what we've used to seeing in 4K size. But all of the entries were quite nice, so there was no absolute rubbish at all. I think that for a demo category to really prosper, you need you need the numbers, you need the entries, and with quantity you start getting quality. And if quantity goes down, then it's a sign that something's wrong.
Truck is looking weird. I want Trucky's
I
feedback
do
on that.
not know where you're coming from on this at all. I remember competitions where I remember the Breakpoint 2004 competition. We had 34 entries. 2 were good.
Yeah. Okay.
We quality and quantity are not always the same thing. And I would rather have a competition where you have 2 quality entries. People come out of that wanting to do things more than seeing a ton of 1K entries that are basically the same darn thing with a variable change.
No, I mean, what I'm talking about is what happens in the scene. That's the people. Like, if you have 20, 30 entries, or like, I don't know how many 1K entries we had in the first one in 2012, I think. It's like dozens of entries. So I think these people are making something.
Yeah, but all of those were crap.
Yeah, they were, but people doing something.
I've been myself, and I admit it, I have been the biggest whiny little bitch about the 1K compo because it was always boring. And it takes some years for the quantity to become quality.
Yes, that's what I meant. Like,
and that's what we have.
Then I'll agree with
that's
you
what
on
we
that.
have now.
Yeah.
And we're getting there. And then 1K is the new 4K. 4K is the 8K. 8K is the 64K. 64K coming up later is the new demo coming up later as well. So there is, as you said, with actually a perfect hook to jump to the toolkits.
Yeah.
Because that's where we are now, because you have toolkits that you can download and just go with it. So any of your experience on that?
Well, yeah, as a matter of fact, I have made one toolkit called compostudio. Yeah, and my entry, the first one in the 4K intro, was made with that. And what you can do with compostudio is, if you can make shaders, like what there is on Shader Toy or GLSL Sandbox, you can basically copy paste that into compostudio, and then you have to get music from somewhere. If like that's still missing from there, but if you can, if someone can make a 4-clang tune for you, you drop that into the folder also, and then you press a few buttons, and it will run it through Shader, Minifier, and
Ta-da!
And it will use Crinkler and all the standard toolkits, and it comes with a template that has all the necessary Windows kind of bureaucracy. There's this like mundane code that you have to have, and it Studio takes away having to study the boring Windows API stuff and setting up your shaders and stuff like that. So I hope if that can make people start.
Where can they get it?
It can be found from at least Google. I haven't even made a Poet entry for it.
It's
so
okay.
far.
Not everyone goes there.
People get it.
Yeah, well, it should demos do so that.
Yes, so because this is a tool that will allow people to actually make 1Ks and 4Ks.
But
yeah, there are others. It's not the only one. There are others, but my one has it has those niceties, like it's just a waveform display where you can like click on time positions and you can do texts and all that.
Make sure that you bring it to the folks that were doing the. Instancy and to the Graphathon folks and the folks that were doing the one scene compo, because that is something that would be able to they could introduce that to everyone.
Truck, you wanted to make a comment about 1K versus 4K.
I did.
And you have 2 minutes for this.
I can take less than that. One of the things that I was very happy that the 1Ks came before the 4Ks. Because seeing this on the gargantuan screen used clouds, and the one that was the 1K, and then the one that was the 4K. Sort of, this is what you can do with 1K. And then there's the
There was a nice
expansion
comparison. Yes.
that you can do. Here's the 4K. I really liked that. And I think that if they would have been in reverse order, that would have been detrimental to the overall effect of both compos.
Okay.
I also am hoping that next year that we see 1Ks and 4Ks, and well, all the productions, but I'd really like to see a 1K use the gargantuan screen. That would be absolutely astounding.
Okay, good. We've had favorite 1Ks, favorite 4Ks, Utsi.
Favorite 4Ks, I think we already went through the 1Ks, but for 4Ks, I'd have to go last ones, number 5 and number 6.
Okay, yes.
Yeah.
Truck, how about you for the 4Ks?
I don't want to influence voting.
I'll take it as a no. Okay, no. I really like the fifth one myself for the overall mood and the music.
Yeah, I thought the visuals were absolutely beautiful, like stunning nature-inspired stuff. It was, and the music was great, very balanced. Just one small mistake that I didn't like the snare sound, the snap sound, hurt my ears.
It happens.
Yeah.
All right, so guys, we have to round it up over here. Truck, Utsi, thank you for joining and your input. We'll be back later with more Compass here at Assembly. I have been Frankie. We will be right back with the Scene Lounge and other stuff. Stay around, stay over here, socialize. If you're looking on the stream, stay tuned. We'll be back. Bye-bye.
Bye.